Working at a summer camp is a very entertaining job for a teenage boy, and I used to be a very active kid. There's nothing more that I hated than being indoors. Growing up in Alberta, Canada, a place known for its breathtaking landscape, it felt like a waste of time spending it between four walls. However, my workaholic parents didn't have enough time to be looking after me for the whole summer, so ever since I was 8, they started sending me to summer camp. And there's no place on earth that made me feel like camp. Every year I felt such happiness, such peace, not to mention I had a ton of friends there. And that's why at the age of 16, when I started to get a little old to go to camp, well, I applied for a job there. And my first time at the camp as an employee was amazing. It didn't even feel like a job. I was surrounded by people I knew, including some of my closest friends who had gotten jobs there as well. And since my first time was successful, I decided to join the team again for the summers of 2003 and 2004, and 2004 being my last one. When the summer of 2004 started, everything was very regular. And around 3 p.m. on the first day, I was greeting the new kids and parents when I saw this strange woman around the parking lot area. I never saw her dropping any kid off. And when she noticed I had seen her, her pace became quicker. And at this point, I decided to approach her and asked her what she needed. I jogged with the hopes of reaching her, but at that point, she was already starting her car. I called to her, but she turned on the car and drove out of there. During the second night, I saw this one kid in the dining room, and he was sat away from the other kids. He was very pale. He had hazel eyes with dark circles around them. He looked younger than the rest of the kids. We can't take kids who aren't older than 7, and he looked as if he were maybe 5 or 6. And I sat in front of him and asked him what his name was, but he didn't answer. I asked him a few other questions, such as which house he was in, but no words were coming out of his mouth. He just stared at me with his watery eyes and said nothing. It's hard, almost ridiculous to explain, but he gave me chills. And some other kids that I had been practicing basketball with earlier approached me to ask me a few questions. And we must have talked for a minute or two, but by the time we finished, the little kid was gone. And I know this sounds odd, but at the time, I didn't think anything about it. I thought he must have been a shy kid who was just having a hard time adapting. So the next 3 days I tried my hardest to find the kid but was too busy with my duties. However, when I didn't expect it, I found him by the lake. He was not swimming like the other kids, nor was he playing. Once again, he was just there staring at something. I approached him once again and asked him the same questions, and this time, he did give me one answer. His name was Dylan Landry. I asked Dylan in which cabin he was staying, but he said he forgot which number it was. And I asked him to join me and the rest of the guys who were about to do swimming races, but he refused to by saying he was waiting for a friend and that the water would hurt him. Now, curiously, the same night, I was at the office and I got a phone call. "I'm sorry we did that. You're our only hope." It was a female voice that sounded that of a young girl. And before I had enough time to say anything, she hung up the phone. It was indeed very weird, but I knew that message couldn't be directed to me. I assumed it was either a wrong number or a prank call from one of the kids. 2 weeks later, I had to do some paperwork at the office when the phone rang once again. "He's not who you think he is," the voice said. It was the same girl. "Who are you? Why are you calling?" I asked her. "I'm his sister, and I want to help you. Mom also does." she said as once again she finished the call. Now this time, I was confused and quite honestly, I was a little spooked. I stopped what I was doing and looked at my surroundings. I thought somebody was watching me. There's no way this is the second time it happened as I was in the office. I mean, what were the odds? And after much reflection, I came to the conclusion that a kid, or some of the kids at the camp, decided to trick me. And after all, the voice was that of a young girl, and there are many girls at the camp, and the calls happened whenever I was at the office. So, I think I was being watched. After the second call, I decided to purposely avoid the office. And one rainy day, well, the weather changed quickly. All of a sudden, it started raining, and then hailing very hard. We told the students to go somewhere else, either to their cabins or to the common areas. The staff had to look at the surroundings and to certify no kid was left behind. I had to look at one of the area's property, and saw nobody around, just the rest of the staff. However, as I was heading to one of the recreation rooms, I came across Dylan. He was soaking wet and was standing by the lake. I asked him what he was doing there, and once again, he said he was waiting for a friend. I told him we needed to go inside because it was dangerous out there, but the kid absolutely refused to move. After 2 minutes of explaining why we needed to go inside, he finally agreed. I couldn't help but noticing that my instincts were right the first time. There was no way Dylan was older than 6. I asked him what his age was when suddenly the hail made me trip. I was having troubles getting up. I slipped and my ankle hurt. And the hail and sleet and rain were making it difficult for me to see, but I noticed Dylan was standing there looking at me with the same blank expression he always had. He didn't look scared. He didn't look bothered. He just didn't care. Luckily, I didn't have to wait for long. My friend Carlos, who was nearby, came to help me. And by the time Carlos came to help me, Dylan had vanished. Carlos took me to the nurse, who informed me I had hurt my foot and ankle and needed to be careful and rested for the next 2 days. So I went to my room and I rested. And I was so upset for the next couple of days that I couldn't do any sports. And well, I'd been assigned crafts. Anyway, a day later, around midnight, I had a cell phone call. It was from a number that I did not know. I was very surprised when I noticed the person on the other line was the same teenage, young-sounding girl. "It's him. He tried to hurt you," she said. "You need to stop this. You're the only one who can do it. Please." She sobbed and cried into the phone. "How did you get my number?" I asked her. "That's not important. Kevin, listen to me. You have to stop him," she answered. These types of calls are very messed up. You shouldn't be doing them. You shouldn't even have my personal number. And now, that being said, what do you mean? Which boy are you talking about? And I asked, for I wanted to know what exactly she was going on about. "The one who made you fall yesterday. The one who pretended to be someone he is not. It's my brother." I couldn't understand what she meant, but I knew who she was talking about. After that call, I couldn't rest. I needed to know whether Dylan was lying or not. When it was dark enough, I sneaked into the office where the reports on the children and all their personal details were. It took me only a minute to find Dylan Landry's information, but when I read it, I was shocked. The Dylan who appeared on the picture was not the same Dylan I knew. The person on the phone was right. The weirdest part was that the kid who appeared on the picture didn't look familiar. Apparently, he was a newbie at the camp, but I hadn't seen him yet. I ran to my boss and showed her the information. She didn't recognize Dylan either. Before calling his parents, we decided to do a search. That way we could hopefully find the real and the fake Dylan. We went room by room looking for the kids, but the more we looked, the little we found. My coworkers and I were starting to get worried. Having a missing child is one of the worst things that can happen at a camp, and luckily, when we had 3 more cabins to check, we found the real Dylan, and he looked just like in the picture. We asked him a few questions and confirmed he was the one on the report. We continued looking for the other kid, but we never saw him. We were going to check all premises when our boss called us. We told her we have found the real kid, Dylan Landry, but not the other kid. And she proceeded to tell us that she had checked all the kids' information, so it was impossible to have an extra one. She said that there was no way any other kid was around the camp. And I asked Carlos whether he had seen the kid when I slipped, but he said no. My boss told me to go and get some rest, and at that moment, I knew nobody believed me. I decided to go back to my room. I laid in bed and grabbed the bottle of water, and all of a sudden, my cell phone rang. "He's been lurking. He waited for the perfect moment to get you, and it has come," the girl whispered. "If you make the beast disappear, my brother will too." "I don't want to hurt anybody," I told her. "They're not human. Brother is not like me, and his demons make him do bad things." Now at this time I hung up. I didn't want to hear any more of that nonsense that was being said. However, as soon as I did, someone threw a rock towards my window, and the rock managed to hit my back. I was furious. I rushed to the window to see who it was when I saw the kid. I opened another window and jumped out of it. I hurried up and chased him, but he was strangely fast, and I ran, but the deeper into the woods I got, the more I lost him. And eventually, he just stopped. And there we were in the middle of nowhere all alone. I started walking towards him when I was ambushed by a heavy thing, and I fell to the ground while a creature was on top of me. And whatever this thing was, it was completely dark and hairy. It looked like a giant wolf, but I just knew he was not a real animal. The only thing visible were its red eyes. The creature was silent, and all you could hear were my screams. And I knew this could be my end, but I remembered Dylan's words. "The water will hurt me." And I grabbed a handful of water from the puddle next to me, and I threw it on the creature. And at that moment, the creature screeched and stepped back. And I could hear the kid screaming too. And this gave me time to get up from the ground. And I quickly grabbed a knife that I had in my pocket, and I stabbed the creature in the neck. And as I did, it began to shake. No blood came out of it, instead a black fog, and in a matter of seconds, the creature was gone. But he was not the only one. The kid had disappeared as well. And after that, I thought I was going insane, and the next day I presented my resignation letter and went back home. I never spoke to anyone about it. People, including my parents, already thought I was crazy enough. And I changed so much after those events. I used to be such a happy, outdoorsy person, but I kind of became a lone wolf. I now live in Chicago because I wanted to be far away from where it all happened. However, a few days ago, I went back to Canada for my dad's birthday. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've been back. And there's a coffee shop in town where I decided to get a cup. And when it was time to take my order, the pretty waitress, a girl a few years younger than me, looked very surprised. Now, I'm too shy, so I didn't ask her if we knew each other or if something was wrong, but I could tell in those teary hazel eyes she wanted to tell me something. And when I was about to leave the shop, she approached me. I asked her if she needed something, to which she replied, "I never called you back. I never said thank you, but thank you for taking care of my brother and that creature. Mom and I always knew you could make them go away." She gently kissed my cheek and went back to work. I stood astonished and blank, like the fake Dylan used to. And eventually I just left the shop. I knew who the girl at the coffee shop was, and for the first time, I understood what she meant. And I have so many questions I don't even know where to start, but some things are better buried in the past. I should just be glad that Dylan and this creature never came back.